Today we dive into the Supreme Court's intense debate over former President Donald Trump's claim of immunity from prosecution regarding his actions after the 2020 election. At the heart of the discussion is Trump's assertion that presidential immunity should shield him from charges related to his alleged efforts to overturn the election results. If the court agrees, that means that any president could do pretty much whatever they want without legal consequence. The Supreme Court's decision is expected this Friday.
Trump's legal team is pushed the claim to its limits, arguing that such immunity could even extend to extreme actions, such as hypothetically assassinating political rivals. This stance has ignited significant legal and constitutional debate about the boundaries of presidential powers and accountability. The Supreme Court's consideration of whether Trump's conduct falls within his official presidential acts and thus merits immunity could set a precedent impacting the very fabric of the U.S. government. Now, Washington is very nervous. This should have been a simple case. Instead, the Supreme Court has waited until the end of the term to drop its decision. Michael, you're a lawyer. Tell me what you think about this one.
Well, look, I mean, this has the potential to change the landscape of our country. If a president is immune from acts that aren't just outside of the scope of his presidency, but anything he does while president, that would mean, for example, that President Joe Biden could assassinate Donald Trump and claim that he is now president forever. It means that President Biden could decide that he wants to throw out our entire constitutional system and say that we no longer are a democracy because there's no criminal liability to anything he does. This is a really dangerous precedent.
Right. I mean, I think the ramifications are so outlandish that it's very obvious to me it's going to be like a 9-0 or 8-1 decision against Trump. So what are people so worried about?
Well, I think one of the big worries is it's taken this long for the court to decide. It should have been an easy decision. We thought that the courts would have actually not even taken
it. By took so long, you mean? I mean, they listened to it, and now they release their decisions throughout the spring.
But usually, this case was originally decided Nixon versus Fitzgerald, which was a case where there was an individual who was a whistleblower and he testified, and then a year later he was fired, and they found that he was wrongfully terminated. So he sued Nixon and claimed wrongful termination. And there the court said you can't sue the president in the official acts of government. Well, here, what we're looking at is the courts had already looked at this issue, so they never should have taken the case in the first place. But by them taking it, it delayed Trump's case here in D.C.
Well, they decide, I mean, the rationale, right, was the stated rationale from the court was that this is a very, very weighty issue, and this court wants to, get its hands on it.
Yeah.
And I have almost no doubt. I have really virtually no doubt at all that it's going to be a loss for Trump.
Well, I have no doubt it's going to be a loss for Trump, but do you really think it's going to be 9-0? I mean, given what we've seen from Alito or in Thomas, it feels like the reason that they're waiting so long to make this decision is they want to make a carve-out specifically for Trump. Something where they could say that, his acts during the election, even though they weren't part of his presidential duties, are somehow inherently covered. In the brief, they actually conceded that Rudy Giuliani broke the law and that when he was doing the stuff in Arizona and New Mexico with the electors and the fake electors, that wasn't a presidential duty.
Yeah, Thomas and Alito are a little less skeptical of Trump's actions. I think that has come through. So I would not be shocked to see them dissenting in a manner to suggest that what Trump was, that while the president is not broadly shielded from any liability, having total immunity, for whatever reason they come up with, Trump's actions specifically are or don't fall into that category. It's still not going to get you anywhere close to giving Trump protection from what happened, because you're not going to find more than 1.5 justices to agree with that.
This is going to be a big legacy case for the court. I think the court's already under a lot of scrutiny after, Alito and the flag, Thomas, and now his
Alito and please. The appeal to heaven flag, a flag everyone has
I've never
put,
that
has flown. Well, you could have. It is a common patriotic symbol. It has only very recently become associated.
But do you not have a problem with
far-right
flying
people?
the upside-down flag while also having the January 6th case before him? I mean, that's problematic. The appearance.
Why? Who cares?
I mean, because when you're the Supreme Court, you're the last line of our democracy, and that is a political statement. And as a justice, you're
flag?
not an upside down flag is
That our
it's a
nation
distress
is in
symbol.
turmoil.
Yeah, it's a distress symbol. And when you're a Supreme Court justice with the January 6th case before him, that seems to me problematic. You want faith in the court. You want our justices.
But our justices have political views, clearly. I mean, they're chosen because they have political views. I think it's. I don't care at all. And I wouldn't care even if there were more affirmatively political messages. These are kind of vague political messages. The upside down flag, the appeal to heaven.
What about his comments the other day that were taped about he believes that we're a Christian, godly nation and we need to get back to that?
I think that's totally fine. I mean, obviously that's what he thinks. He later said in that was the biggest nothing burger in the history of undercover videos. That was like James O'Keefe and then some in terms of very little revelation. Is anyone surprised that we know him to be?
We know him to be staunchly
Christian
Catholic,
conservative,
absolutely.
Catholic conservative.
He's part of what DC calls the Catholic Mafia.
He said that the court has a limited role in fostering that. Also, if you come up to me at a party and you start asking me questions while I'm on my way to the bar, and you start saying, I'm just going to agree with whatever you're saying, and then you're recording me, you'll make me sound like I'm crazy, but it's just because I was trying to get out of this conversation as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've actually been to some of the Christmas parties, where there have been a couple justices, and I will never forget John Roberts stands in the back corner at parties and will not take pictures with anyone.
Yeah.
He doesn't really talk to anyone, and this is the exact reason why.
Yeah. So I don't. But would you? I want to go back to this. Would you? What if Ketanji Brown Jackson had a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker on her car?
And then there was a Black Lives Matter case before her.
Yeah.
I think that there would be a reasonable question about whether she should step aside for that case. We're not talking about her stepping aside from all cases, but cases where not just you have an interest, but it's the appearance of impropriety.
Maybe if the case literally involved the Black Lives Matter organization. But if it was just a case about criminal about racially profiling, someone sued for their constitutional rights who had been a young black kid, and the case is about whether the police had probable cause or something. Which is a key Black Lives Matter issue, and I don't think she should recuse herself.
Yeah, in that instance, I don't think she should recuse.
Well, that's exactly the same as the upside down flag and the appeal to heaven. They don't specifically tie to January 6th in any way. They are, if anything, kind of conservative iconography. Now,
his wife specifically said that she was flying that flag as a result of the election that she believed had been co-opted and stolen. It's the same thing as Ginny Thomas.
Well, Ginny Thompson is a little bit different because she was actually involved in it. She was not just supportive of, but was an organizer of some bad things.
Yeah, attempting to overthrow the government.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's an argument for clemency. Again, if there was a direct, if you're financially involved in a case coming before,
I think Ginny Thomas is
a family member. That's a totally different. But just because you have sympathy to some views that maybe kind of happen to a lie, I'm not gonna.
I can see. I can at least see the Alito side of it, because if you want to make the comparison, we've heard some of the liberal justices talk about abortion and their views on abortion, and then it's come before them. And so in those instances, I wouldn't say they necessarily had to step aside from the case just because we've heard their stances on abortion.
I think recusal has got to be,
it's
limited to cases where I remember a case where I think Souter or someone recused himself because it was like a property case and he was literally financially involved with it. Like that is the proper for recusal, or if you were related to someone who was involved in the case. But I think I don't know. I think liberals have made a lot of this.
I think Republicans have ignored the appearance of impropriety, but I think for a broader issue, the court has become just as unpopular as Congress. People have no faith in the courts anymore. I think that began with when Bush v. Gore was decided, and it's only continuing. And now when you have Trump's lawyer making the argument that he could assassinate someone or he could sell nuclear secrets and that would be immune from prosecution.
In 2000, it was perfectly fine to question the legitimacy of the election. That's just recently become a thought crime that is totally unthinkable.
I mean, it's a little different what you're talking about.
Well, because that was actually like a really dicey election.
That was an actual close election that we were trying to figure out.
Well, but my point being, they're trying to get, the mainstream media is trying to get every Republican on the, will you vow to stand by the results of the next election? And
you can understand why that.
Well, if it's like 2000, I don't. Democrats didn't vow to do.
I specifically remember Al Gore standing up in front of the country when Democrats were upset and saying, for the sake of our country, I'm conceding this election. And I was a young
nice
Democrat. It was the right thing to do. It was right. And I mean, even Hillary Clinton, who at first was very unhappy about it, came out the next day
in
and
2000?
conceded. In 2016, came out and conceded that election.
Well, and then later said that it was an illegitimate election because of Russia's involvement.
She conceded the election.
She gets no points from me on that in my book.
Listen, Hillary's not my favorite person, but I can stand by her for doing the right thing in 2016.
Al Gore really got screwed because that one county in Florida just literally printed the ballots incorrectly. There's nothing to do about that.
No, the Chads were just
not even the Chad. It's the butterfly ballots.
Oh, that's
the
right.
ones where it was all those people who were
and it didn't
clearly
line up.
wanted to vote for Gore. Like if you gave this thing to like 100 people, you would have a significant number of people do it wrong every time because it was genuinely confusing. They all voted for Pat Buchanan.
That's right.
I do remember that. That threw the whole election, as it turned out.
And we can thank the Supreme Court for deciding that election.
Yeah, more Rising right after this.